Om Sri Sai Ram. Premavahini, Chapter 52. The course of life of a forest dweller. After being a householder, experiencing the sorrow, happiness, and joy, and learning the true significance of all these, one has to retire into the forest at the age of 45 or 50, leaving the house one built and the place where one lived. If his wife is alive, he has to get her consent and entrust her to the care of the son or her parents, or take her with him and treat her like a brother, himself being immersed in celibacy, brahmacharya. There is a great change even in diet. He has to eat roots and fruits and drink only milk. Things that should not be baked full but only up to a third. Rice should not be used much. If it is not possible to arrange a diet on these lines, he can visit the nearby village and collect food by begging. But he has to bring the food into the forest and eat it there, in his own habitation. He has to give to his dependents the same food that he takes, for they can't prepare food, they prepare or get it supplied. If they don't relish it, they have to be content with only milk and fruits, for he must not change his routine to satisfy others, however troublesome it may be. The discipline should not be modified or given up. This is to be specially noted. The forest dweller cannot have any worship, alms giving, or any such duties. Even if he gives food or articles to other, it cannot be regarded as alms, dana. Also, he cannot receive anything from others as alms. He must have the same pure love toward all in equal measure. Discarding old clothes once a year, he must don new clothes during September, October, the month of Asvija. The vows of penance during the waxing and waning of the moon, Chandra and Vrata, is the most important of the forest dwellers' oaths. For the first 15 days of this month, he must eat a morsel less every day, and for the remaining 15, a morsel more. On the new and full moon days, he has to take only rice gruel, kanji. In the rainy season, he must do ascetic practice, tapas, standing in the rain. In winter, he must wear wet cloths while engaged in ascetic practices. Performing such asceticism systematically, he has to bath 3 times a day. The various Upanishadic statements are to be studied and their meanings understood and experienced. If such a forest dweller falls victim to any disease, the diet routine has to be cancelled and he has to live on air and water. He shall walk on in the northeastern direction until he dies. On the other hand, if he has no bodily disease and is hale and hearty after adopting the above disciplines, he will experience the spontaneous dawn of the true knowledge. By means of this knowledge, he will attain liberation, moksha. Jai Sai Ram. Om Sri Sai Ram. Premavahini, Chapter 53. External and internal disciplines are necessary for one-pointed devotion. Many argue about how this discipline can result in the dawn of knowledge. Are not these mere bodily limitations, they ask? Knowledge can arise only by the realization of the principle that guarantees self realization. How can something that does not contain this principle be called knowledge? They argue. But this line of thought is based on a big mistake. Through these physical regulations, traits, vasanas, are destroyed and concentration is established. The Upanishadic statements serve to foster and strengthen this one pointedness step by step. The experience of the Upanishadic maxim alone will bring about the dawn of knowledge. Are not the Upanishads the very knowledge itself? With that embodiment of wisdom, Jnana Swarupa, as companion realizing it in one's own experience. What need is there to search for knowledge elsewhere? One-pointedness is essential to establish spiritual wisdom firmly in the heart. And this one-pointedness can easily be gained by the above-mentioned bodily disciplines and austerities, tapas. External control helps internal control in many ways. To succeed in external controls is more difficult than to achieve success in controlling the internal. A turn of the steering wheel in one's hand in any direction makes the wheels of the car, which are not in one's hand, move to the same direction. The wheels won't turn in one direction when the steering is turned in another. The introspective wheels are based on the extrospective steering itself. It is the natural basis. Sometimes, when the steering is turned one way, the wheels may drag another way, but this is due to the giving up the natural characteristic. The internal wheels, if they have no air, which is the true essence, may behave as if there is no relationship with the steering, but they cannot go behind the bounds of steering. The steering in the hand is related to the wheels below. If there is no such relation, the journey becomes impossible. The connection is inevitable. Therefore, for the one who has struggled with and conquered the external tendencies, the internal tendencies become easily controllable. The external tendencies have name and form and are attracted by becoming objects of experience. So, to overcome them is a matter of some difficulty. But internal tendencies have no form even though they may be endowed with name. They are also experienced as spiritual bliss, ananda, so they can be overcome more easily, they can be tamed with greater ease. The bother is more for external conduct and behavior. These are associated with taste, form, and heaviness. The internal tendencies have no form, taste, or weight. Pure water has no form, taste, or heaviness. Impure water is different in all these three. So, to clarify impure water is indeed difficult, but pure water can be given any form required with very great ease. Similarly, the difficulty is all about purifying mental behavior, which is spoiled by the delusions of the world. There is no need to set right mental behavior that is free from such delusions. Delusionless behavior is necessarily pure. It is without any trace of defect and doubt. Why should it be set right? Therefore, if people first control and conquer external delusion as much as possible, the internal tendencies will easily move in the direction of Atmic bliss, Atmananda. Yoga and penance, tapas, are only other names for the path of the control and conquest of these external tendencies and delusions. The rules of forest dweller, Vanaprastha, are but methods to succeed in this yoga. When one subdues delusion of all types in the forest dweller stage, the journey ends in liberation, moksha. But we cannot say that liberation has only this one path. Through whatever path grace is obtained, that path may be chosen. Liberation is achieved by these rules and observances of the forest dweller stage. It can be secured by following this path. It also makes a person delusion free. It gives them one pointedness. Jai Sai Ram.